Dead America. New York Tales. Times Square. By Derek Slayton. Chapter 1. Day 0:10 p.m. Laura strolled through the lobby of her hotel, clad in jeans and a t-shirt, an unusual sight for the typically more polished 22-year-old student. But after enduring a lengthy flight from Kansas City, she craved nothing more than relaxation. Despite her desire to unwind, Laura found herself muttering obscenities under her breath, her errand pressing her to venture out into the city streets rather than retreat to the comfort of her room. Stepping onto the sidewalk, she was relieved to spot a taxi waiting just outside the hotel entrance. She quickly hopped into the cab, the elderly driver barely acknowledging her presence as he sat behind the wheel. "Where are you headed?" The driver grumbled. "Times Square, please," Laura replied. "It's only like 5 blocks away if you wanted to save a few bucks," the driver suggested. "I just spent 9 hours in airline hell with delays and multiple layovers. It's worth a few bucks if it means I get to curl up in my room sooner," Laura retorted. The driver chuckled before nodding and shifting the car into gear. "Well, let's get you to Times Square then." "Thank you," Laura said gratefully. "So, where are you flying in from?" the driver inquired. "Kansas City," Laura replied. "Nice. I've been out there a few times myself. Some fantastic barbecue out in those parts," the driver remarked. "We do pride ourselves with our grilled meats out there," Laura agreed with a small smile. "So what brings you to New York?" the driver asked, engaging in conversation. "I'm visiting my sister and her kid and scoping out a couple of colleges," Laura explained. The driver emitted a derisive scoff, his skepticism evident. "There ain't no way you're college age," he remarked. Laura's smile widened, acknowledging the disbelief with a nod of gratitude. "Believe it or not, I'm graduating college at the end of the year. I want to go for my master's, and my sister really wants me to be near her." "So you're humoring her by coming out here and looking at colleges, huh?" the driver surmised, a knowing grin on his face. Laura attempted to deny it, but her expression betrayed her true feelings, prompting a chuckle from the driver. "There it is. I got 4 sisters, so I know all about humoring them to get them off my back," he confessed. "Don't get me wrong, I'd love to be closer to her, but I just don't think I'm cut out for the big city. I mean, Kansas City is big, but New York is big, if that makes sense," Laura explained. The driver let out a hearty laugh, nodding in agreement. "You ain't wrong about that. I've lived here my whole life and there's parts of the city I still haven't been to yet. It's not just the size of the city either. I'd have to give up my truck if I moved out here, and I'd miss those country drives too much," Laura lamented. "That sounds like the dream. Open roads, high speed limit." The driver mused before abruptly stopping as he honked the horn and gestured angrily at another car before speeding around it. "No dumbasses on the road," he grumbled. "Oh, we have those out there too. At least with the open country roads, you can leave them in the dust," Laura remarked wryly. The driver chuckled as he eased the taxi to the side of the road. Laura peered out through the front windshield, greeted by the dazzling expanse of Times Square. Millions of lights pierced the darkness, casting a radiant glow over the throngs of people bustling about, lost in their shopping excursions. "Okay, miss, we have arrived. It will be 12:65, the driver announced. Laura nodded, retrieving her wallet from her purse and extracting a $20 bill, which she handed up to him. "And keep the change," she offered generously. "That's mighty kind of you. Do you need any directions, or do you know where you're going?" the driver inquired. "If you happen to know of a good toy store, that would be a big help," Laura replied. "There's plenty of them up here, but I'm kind of partial to Doc's," the driver suggested. "Doc's?" Laura echoed, intrigued. "Yeah, it's a bit of a local institution. 3 stories of fun with everything you could possibly want," the driver explained. "Sounds good to me. I traveled too far just to shop at a corporate place," Laura remarked with a grin. "My kind of girl. If I was 20 years younger, I'd probably still be too old for you," the driver quipped, eliciting laughter from both of them. As the taxi came to a halt, the driver pointed to his right. "Doc's is up a block on the right. It's the one on the corner with the big blue sign. You can't miss it." "I appreciate it. You have a good night," Laura said gratefully. "You too, miss," the driver replied warmly. Laura stepped out of the taxi, her eyes widening as she ventured into the bustling heart of Times Square. She paused, taking in the dazzling spectacle of lights, the cacophony of sounds, and the throngs of people. For a girl hailing from the Midwest, the sensory overload was palpable. "Okay, let's find a toy and get back to the hotel," Laura said, her voice determined as she refocused her attention. She strode purposefully through the open expanse, spotting Doc's just as the taxi driver had described. Entering the store, she was greeted by an overwhelming scene. It was the largest store she had ever laid eyes on, rows upon rows of toys extending down the entire block. Massive escalators loomed in the center, reaching skyward to the upper floors. As Laura stood in awe, a young man approached her. He appeared to be in his early 20s, dressed in slacks and a blue polo shirt, his name tag identifying him as Jason. "Hey, welcome to Doc's. Is there anything I can help you find today?" Jason inquired with a friendly smile. "Hi, Jason. I'm looking for something for my nephew," Laura replied, returning the smile. "I have no doubt that we have it here." "How old is the little guy?" Jason asked. 5 or 6. "Something like that," Laura replied with a hint of uncertainty. Jason smirked knowingly, gesturing for Laura to follow him. "Do you know what he likes? Cars? Superheroes? Dolls?" "Pretty sure it's not dolls," Laura quipped, a playful tone in her voice. "Kids are into everything these days, so I never like to assume," Jason remarked with a chuckle. Laura nodded in agreement as they strolled through the store. As they neared the center, Jason's attention was briefly diverted by a coworker struggling to open a box for a customer. Without missing a beat, Jason deftly extracted a multi-tool from his pocket, swiftly resolving the issue with practiced ease. "Thanks, Jason," the coworker acknowledged with gratitude. "Anytime," Jason replied casually, his focus already returning to Laura. Undeterred, he guided Laura towards an aisle brimming with an array of superhero figures. Laura's expression wavered between awe and apprehension as she took in the multitude of options. "Would you like me to make some suggestions? That way, if he doesn't like it, you can blame me?" Jason offered with a grin. Laura chuckled softly, appreciating the offer. "Yes, please." With purposeful strides, Jason led her down the aisle, pondering aloud. "Let's see, what would I have liked at that age?" He paused, considering his life for a moment. "Actually, what would I like now?" "Still enjoy the toys, do you?" Laura quipped. "The world is a harsh place, so anything I can do to keep my sanity," Jason replied with a wry smile. Laura nodded thoughtfully, mulling over his words. Before Jason could make a suggestion, however, a sudden crash and a piercing scream shattered the tranquility of the store. "Is that normal?" Laura inquired. "Normal? No. Common?" "Sadly, yes," Jason lamented. "I'm the floor lead tonight, so give me just a moment." "Of course," Laura replied. Jason nodded solemnly and departed from the aisle, his steps determined as he headed toward the source of the commotion at the front of the store. Meanwhile, Laura stood amidst the towering display of superhero figures, her brows furrowed in bewilderment at the overwhelming variety. "How in the world are there this many characters?" she mused aloud. The sound of more screams reverberated through the store, accompanied by the hurried footsteps of people racing past her aisle. Laura's gaze darted toward the main center aisle, where a stream of individuals rushed toward the back of the store, some clutching small children and followed closely by vigilant employees. A sense of unease washed over Laura as the realization dawned that something was amiss. Suddenly, another crash echoed nearby, followed by frantic screams that pierced the air. Laura tensed, her senses on high alert. Just then, a figure collapsed at the head of the aisle, crashing to the ground with a resounding thud. Laura's heart raced as she watched, struggling to comprehend what she was witnessing. As the injured person struggled to rise, A sudden assailant leaped onto their back, sinking their teeth into their neck. Laura stifled a horrified scream, her movements frozen as she witnessed the gruesome scene unfolding before her eyes. Her breath caught in her throat as a hand clasped firmly onto her shoulder, while another covered her mouth. Startled, she began to protest until she recognized Jason's familiar face, his expression fraught with terror. Understanding the urgency of the situation, Laura nodded silently, and Jason released his grip. Turning to face him, Laura's eyes widened in shock as she noticed the blood-staining Jason's uniform. Without hesitation, he gestured for her to follow him, his urgency palpable. Together, they navigated through the aisles, seeking refuge from the unfolding chaos. Reaching the end of the aisle, Jason halted, scanning their surroundings vigilantly. To their right, towards the back of the store, pandemonium reigned as dozens of people fought for their lives against the relentless attackers. The scene to their left offered no respite either, as the front doors stood wide open, allowing more assailants to flood into the store, perpetuating the violence. Caught between two fronts of peril, Laura felt a shiver of dread course through her veins as the gravity of the situation fully sank in. Jason's frustration mounted as he weighed their dwindling options, but his eyes alighted on a potential sanctuary, the bathroom. He tapped Laura on the arm, signaling towards the doors, which beckoned from 15 yards away. Laura nodded in silent accord. Breaking from cover, they dashed forward, their hearts pounding with adrenaline-fueled urgency. Yet their respite was short-lived as a ghastly figure. A former colleague of Jason's, now transformed into a ghoul, spotted them. With terrifying speed, the zombie lunged towards them, its grotesque form a macabre sight. Jason reacted quickly, sidestepping the oncoming attack and using its momentum to propel it into a nearby display. As the creature thrashed amidst the wreckage, Jason and Laura sprinted towards the haven of the bathroom. Drawing closer, they spotted 4 other individuals also making a desperate bid for safety. 2 managed to slip inside the sanctuary of the bathroom, while the remaining 2 lagged behind. Tragically, the person at the rear, a middle-aged man clad in a newly acquired New York sweatshirt, became the target of the ravenous creature's relentless pursuit. With a sickening realization, Laura and Jason watched in horror as the man was tackled by one of the assailants. The force of the impact sent both the middle-aged man and his assailant crashing into the wall, their bodies colliding with bone-jarring force. The woman in the store uniform, just ahead of him, turned back to offer assistance, but Jason's urgent intervention halted her. Forget him. Jason's voice was sharp with urgency as he seized her arm, forcefully propelling her towards the sanctuary of the bathroom. He quickly ushered her inside, ensuring she was the last to enter. Turning on his heels, he glimpsed a horde of creatures sprinting down the superhero aisle in their direction. With a sense of impending dread, Jason slammed the bathroom door shut, but not before one of the pursuing assailants reached it, threatening to breach the door. "I need help here." Jason's call echoed through the confined space as he rallied the survivors within. Together, they pushed against the door, leveraging their combined strength to keep the encroaching horrors at bay. Jason's hand hovered over the deadbolt lock, poised to secure their refuge at a moment's notice. Outside, the onslaught intensified as the creatures joined forces, their primal instincts driving them to breach the barrier separating them from their prey. It was a harrowing battle of wills, the survivors straining against the relentless onslaught, their every effort focused on securing the door against the impending threat. Finally, with a collective surge of effort, the door was forced shut enough for Jason to flick the deadbolt into place, sealing them inside the bathroom. As the tension ebbed, the survivors stepped back from the door, their labored breaths mingling with the cacophony of moans and banging echoing from the creatures outside. Chapter 2. The 5 individuals stood in a tense silence within the confines of the bathroom, their eyes fixed on the dead-bolted door that now served as their sole barrier against impending doom. With each pounding fist on the other side, they flinched, their hopes pinned on the door's resilience. After several heart-pounding moments, Jason noticed that the door remained steadfast, prompting a sigh of relief to escape his lips. Turning to Laura, he addressed her with concern etched on his features. "Are you okay?" Jason inquired. "Yeah, I'm okay," Laura replied, her voice steadying. "Sorry about scaring you back there. I was just running on instinct," Jason apologized. "Trust me, it's all good," Laura reassured him with a smile. If you hadn't come back for me, I'd be out there. So thank you, she added gratefully. What can I say? I strive to go above and beyond at my job, Jason quipped, a hint of self-deprecation in his tone, eliciting a chuckle from Laura before she quickly stifled it. I'm Laura, she introduced herself, extending a hand towards Jason. It's nice to meet you, Laura. I'm Jason, he replied, returning her smile, though a hint of embarrassment crossed his face as he realized she had already seen his name tag. Before they could exchange further pleasantries, another store employee approached them. Helen, in her 40s with a weathered countenance and haunted eyes, demanded answers. Jason, what in the hell is going on? Helen asked. I wish I knew, Helen. I wish I knew, Jason replied somberly. As Helen struggled to maintain her composure, tears welling in her eyes, Laura stepped forward, wrapping her arm around Helen's shoulders in a gesture of comfort and support. Meanwhile, Jason approached the two other individuals in the room. Cody, an imposing figure standing 6 feet tall with a physique reminiscent of a Greek statue, was engrossed in texting on his phone. The other man, Bradley, stood nearly a foot shorter, sporting a dad bod that contrasted sharply with Cody's chiseled physique. Bradley furrowed his brow as he attempted to make a call on his phone. Are you guys okay? Jason inquired. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what's going on, Cody replied, his focus still on his phone. Noticing the blood on Cody's arm, Jason's concern deepened. Did one of those people attack you? Cody glanced down at his arm, wiping away the blood and visibly relieved when he discovered no wound beneath it. One of them came running up behind me, and I elbowed the lady in the face. I must have broken her nose or something, because that's not my blood, he explained matter-of-factly. Good, Jason remarked. I'm Jason, that's my coworker Helen, and my new friend Laura. I'm Cody, the imposing figure introduced himself, his voice steady despite the circumstances. As Jason and Cody turned their attention to Bradley, they observed him frantically holding his phone up to his ear, the volume turned up high, the incessant ringing echoing through the tense silence of the bathroom. With a wave, Jason managed to catch Bradley's attention, prompting him to lower his phone momentarily. I'm Bradley, he introduced himself in a panicked tone, his eyes wide with desperation. I'm just trying to call my wife, but nobody is answering the phone. Calm down, Bradley. It's going to be okay. Where's your wife? Jason's voice was reassuring. We just had dinner across the way. I wanted to get our little girl a toy because I wanted her to remember her trip to New York. But she was tired, so they walked back to the hotel, Bradley explained, his voice trembling with anxiety. A shared glance between Jason and Cody conveyed the unspoken realization that Bradley's wife and child were likely among the victims outside. However, neither of them had the heart to voice this grim truth, opting instead to let Bradley continue to cling to the fleeting hope of a response. Turning back to Laura and Helen, who remained vigilant near the door, Jason exchanged a somber nod with Laura. So far, this thing is holding up. But unless there's a secret exit, I think we're stuck here, Laura said. Yeah, that door isn't going to budge. They've been renovating the building, and this one just installed it a few weeks ago. The owner wanted a shelter for people, so he sprung for the security doors, Jason explained. The good news is, they're working, Laura replied. Well, they only work if there's somebody on the other side to take care of the problem, Jason remarked. The police, Laura said, as her and Jason had the same thought at the same time. We're not allowed to have cell phones out on the floor, so I'm not going to be much help, Jason explained. Laura nodded as she retrieved her phone from her purse and dialed 911. Meanwhile, Jason turned to Cody, who had been following their conversation closely. With a nod of understanding, Cody raised his phone, indicating that he was attempting to call for help as well. However, their efforts were met with disappointment as both Laura and Cody received the same busy signal, indicating that the circuits were overwhelmed with calls. Despite repeated attempts, their calls went unanswered. I think it's safe to say that we're not the only people calling for help, Cody remarked. What do we do then? Helen's voice quivered with uncertainty and fear. Not sure what else we can do besides sit here and wait. Cody replied resignedly. You just want to sit here in a bathroom? Helen asked. No, lady, I want to be out at the club showing this body off to the little hotties. But unless you have some bright idea, sitting in this bathroom is what we're going to have to do, Cody retorted, his frustration boiling over. As the tension between Cody and Helen escalated, Jason retreated into deep thought, his gaze wandering upwards to the ceiling. He noticed a patch job on the roof, a glimmer of hope sparking within him. Smacking Cody on the arm to capture his attention, Jason asked, Do you think you can give me a boost up there? Yeah, but what for? Cody asked. They'd been doing renovations on the building, and one of the workers was talking about how big of a pain in the ass it's been clearing out the old insulation between the floors. Jason elaborated. So what? How does insulation help us? Cody pressed, still puzzled. There is no insulation up there at the moment. They just finished clearing it out earlier this week, and there was a shipment delay on the replacement, Jason said. I still don't see how that helps us, Cody admitted. There's nearly 3 feet of space between the floors, so if we can get up there, we can find a spot where those people aren't to come up, Jason explained. And then what? It's all open space on the 2nd floor, Jason. Helen interjected. The break room isn't. And it's close to the stairs to the 3rd floor, Jason countered. Is there anything special on the 3rd floor? Because given how those people were moving, I'm sure they could figure out how to get upstairs, Cody said. It's closed for construction. There's a barricade at the top of the escalator that's locked off with a metal door. If we can get up there, we should be okay, Jason said. I don't like it, Jason. It's too dangerous, Helen protested. Sitting here is dangerous too, Helen. We don't have any food, which means unless help gets to us in the next few days, we're going to starve, Jason said. And I've been calling 911 this entire time, and it seems like the entire system has collapsed, Laura added. Which means we have to assume the worst, Jason said. As Helen's fear escalated, tears streaming down her cheeks, Jason reached out to comfort her, his words imbued with reassurance. It's going to be okay, Helen. We'll be okay, I promise. Helen nodded as Laura approached, offering comfort while persistently calling the police, yet with no success. Jason turned his attention back to the group, his gaze falling on Bradley, who remained seated on a toilet, oblivious to the continuous ringing of the phone. He's a lost cause, man, Cody remarked. We'll try to smack him back to reality once we're through the roof here, Jason responded. I'm not a fan of just leaving a man to die, but I'm also not going to sacrifice myself for someone who doesn't want to live. So how do we get through that? Cody asked. Even if I could reach up there, I doubt I could punch through it. Jason smirked before retrieving his multi-tool. Stepping into the handicap stall, he approached the support handrail, inspecting its screws. With the appropriate Phillips head bit, he began unscrewing it. After a few minutes of effort, he successfully removed the 3-foot piece of metal, tossing it over to Cody. If you want to start working on the ceiling, I'll get this other railing off, Jason said. Having another weapon with some reach wouldn't hurt. Cody nodded, gesturing to Laura for assistance. Can you steady me? He asked. Laura nodded, stowing her phone in her purse. Cody climbed onto one of the toilets directly beneath the patched roof. Laura positioned herself beneath him, grasping his leg to ensure his stability. Gripping the metal bar tightly, Cody thrust it upwards into the ceiling with all his might. The initial impact dislodged a sizable chunk of the cheap building material, sending it crashing to the floor. I'll be through this in no time, Jason. You might want to get Bradley to snap out of it, Cody called out. Jason gave a thumbs up as he completed removing the shorter support bar from the wall. Gripping the 2-foot-long piece of metal, he gave it a few practice swings before nodding to himself and heading over to Bradley. Approaching the distraught father, Jason gently took the phone from his hand, encountering no resistance from Bradley, who seemed catatonic. Hey Bradley, are you with me, buddy? Jason asked softly. We're going to have to get moving here in just a minute. Do you think you can do that? Bradley remained seated, his gaze fixed on some distant point, as if his entire world had crumbled around him. Bradley, can you hear me, buddy? Jason tried again, Jason shook Bradley, but there was still no response. Eventually, Helen stepped in and delivered a sharp slap across Bradley's face. The sudden shock brought him back to the present, his hand rising to the forming welt on his cheek. "Get your shit together, man," Helen admonished. "Your wife and child are out there, and they're going to need you to survive this, so snap out of it." Bradley nodded shakily, rising to his feet. "Pardon me," he muttered, his voice trembling. Quietly excusing himself, Bradley navigated past the duo at the edge of the stall, pacing back and forth as he tried to collect himself. Meanwhile, Jason stood up and regarded Helen with curiosity. That was a little out of character. "Where did that come from, Helen?" he inquired. "I figured this is my last day on the job, so I might as well check off a bucket list item," Helen replied wryly. "And smacking the hell out of a customer was on your list?" Jason raised an eyebrow. "Trust me, Jason, if you work retail as long as I have, you have a long list of things you'd like to do to a customer on your bucket list. Smacking was the kindest thing on there, let me assure you," Helen explained. Jason chuckled, prompting Helen to do the same, both of them suppressing a full-blown laugh. Thankfully, their amusement was interrupted by the cessation of banging on the roof. As they looked up, they saw Cody poking his head through the large opening in the ceiling. "It looks like we can move through there, all right," Cody announced. "Then let's get everybody up there, because we have places to go," Jason declared. Chapter 3. Cody assisted Jason in maneuvering into the space between the floors, where there was enough room for both of them to move comfortably. From this vantage point, Cody glanced down toward the others gathered in the bathroom. "Can somebody pass me up their phone?" "I need a light," Jason requested, prompting Laura to nod and offer her phone. "Thanks. Give me a minute to figure out where we need to go, and we'll get the rest of you up here," Jason replied, accepting the phone and fiddling with it to illuminate their surroundings. He shook his head in disbelief at the situation unfolding before him. "And I thought inventory was the worst thing about this job," Jason chuckled, surveying the dusty crawl space. After spotting a large blocked-off area in the middle, he quickly figured out what it was. "Okay, that has to be the escalators. So if we get on the other side of that, it should be a straight shot to the break room," Jason concluded, turning back to address the group in the bathroom. "Okay, I think I know where we're going. Cody, if you want to start boosting people up, I'll get them up here," Jason directed, receiving Cody's affirmation. "You got it," Cody agreed, then turned to Laura, who was at the front of the line. "I'm just going to grab you by the waist if that's okay," Cody informed her, to which Laura replied with a touch of humor, "Good to see that there are some gentlemen in this town." Cody couldn't resist flashing a charming smile at Laura, earning him a swift smack on the arm from Helen. "Flirt on your own time, playboy," Helen scolded. Cody couldn't help but laugh at Helen's reaction, his smile fading as he nodded. He positioned himself for Laura to climb up, providing a boost and then pulling her high enough for her to grab onto the ledge. With patience and effort, Cody repeated the process for everyone in the bathroom, ensuring their safe ascent into the crawl space. Once everyone was secure, he waved off Jason's assistance, expressing confidence in his ability to join them. "It's all good, man. I got this," Cody assured Jason before leaping from the toilet, effortlessly pulling himself up into the opening. Helen couldn't hide her impressed reaction, eliciting a smirk from Cody. "I would comment on that, Helen, but you told me to stop flirting," Cody teased, earning a scoff from Helen, who tried to divert attention by turning towards Jason. With the flashlight guiding their way, Jason outlined their next steps. "Okay, I know this isn't ideal, but it beats being out on the sales floor. The break room is on the other side of the elevator bank there. While we're safe in here, we need to stay as quiet as possible. The floor above us isn't very thick, and we don't want to alert anyone to our presence down here. Is that clear to everyone?" Jason instructed, receiving nods of agreement from the group. He then directed their attention to the left of the escalators, indicating their path forward. "Let's start crawling," Jason urged, leading the way with his flashlight. The group found themselves maneuvering through the narrow passage between floors, their progress slow amidst the dust and debris scattered from ongoing construction. Each step was taken with caution, mindful of the precarious surroundings. Above them, the sound of footsteps echoed, a cacophony of movement reverberating through the wooden floors. Jason strained to discern any pattern in their erratic motions, hoping for a clue to their intentions, but they seemed to wander aimlessly. Suddenly, a surge of footsteps rushed away in the opposite direction, as though drawn by an unseen force. Moments later, the silence was shattered by screams of terror, stifled by thundering mob. Jason pushed aside the disturbing sounds echoing above, urging the group to quicken their pace. He couldn't help but hope that whoever had fallen victim to the commotion would serve as a temporary distraction, buying them precious time to escape the claustrophobic crawlspace. Though the callousness of his thoughts weighed on him, he justified it with the grim logic that their sacrifice might secure their own survival. Finally, Jason guided them to their destination beneath the break room. Cody, eager to confirm their location, wriggled past the others until he was beside Jason, their voices hushed in the dimness. "Are you sure this is the break room?" Cody whispered. "Yeah," Jason affirmed, his gaze fixed on a slender pipe above. Jason directed the beam of his flashlight towards a slender plumbing pipe descending from the floor, its purpose evident to Cody upon closer inspection. "That's for the sink in the break room," Jason confirmed. Cody nodded in understanding, preparing his pipe for action. But before he could commence pounding on the floor, Jason intervened, seizing his arm and shaking his head. "If we're not breaking through, then how are we getting up there?" Cody inquired, a hint of frustration coloring his voice. Jason produced his multi-tool, unfolding a lengthy piece of flat metal. Cody scrutinized the aged wooden floor, its planks secured to support beams. "That's going to take forever," Cody remarked. "Got somewhere else to be?" Jason retorted with a wry smile, before setting to work prying the boards loose with his tool. As he worked, Cody applied pressure from below, their combined efforts gradually loosening several boards within minutes, though they hadn't breached the break room yet. Once preparations were complete, Jason signaled for the others to hold back as he and Cody positioned themselves. They paused in silence, straining their ears for any sign of activity above, relieved by the absence of footsteps. "Okay, we have to assume the break room door is open. We need to get in there quietly and shut it," Jason instructed. "I've got your back," Cody affirmed. Jason's expression shifted to one of incredulity, a hint of offense flickering in his eyes at Cody's apparent assumption. Cody, perceptive to the unspoken exchange, quickly clarified. "Dude, look at me. Do I look like I move quietly?" Cody retorted. Jason mulled over Cody's point for a moment before conceding with a nod. "Okay, let's do this." With synchronized movements, they began to carefully displace the wooden planks, setting them aside with minimal noise. Within moments, Jason was able to poke his head through the opening in the floor, surveying the scene beyond. The partially open door revealed a chilling sight, a blood trail on the floor that went out of the break room and around the corner. Though the details eluded him, the faint sounds of movement confirmed the presence of danger. Jason rose cautiously, stepping onto the exposed boards with a wince as they creaked beneath his weight. He paused, collecting himself before proceeding, determined to tread as lightly as possible. Jason inched closer to the door, his movements cautious and deliberate. Just as his hand reached out to grasp the handle, a faint noise from the other side alerted him to impending danger. Reacting quickly, Jason lunged for the door, attempting to close it before the creature could fully emerge. Yet before he could act, the ghoul lurched forward, obstructing his attempt to shut the door. Instincts kicked in as Jason seized the ghoul by its shirt, forcefully pulling it into the room with them. As the zombie stumbled forward, Jason gently closed the door, careful to minimize noise. Cody's eyes widened in alarm as he witnessed the creature approaching him. With a muttered curse, he delivered a sharp blow to its side, momentarily disorienting it. Seizing the opportunity, Cody wrapped his arms around the creature, restraining it tightly. "I need some help here," Cody called out urgently. Cody maneuvered the thrashing creature to face Jason, who approached with no fear in his eyes. Drawing his multi-tool, Jason extracted the knife and began stabbing at the ghoul's chest, but to no avail. Their shared confusion was palpable as Cody voiced their predicament. "That's not working." Frustration tinged Jason's response. "What do I do then? I thought stabbing it in the chest would at least hurt it." Go for the eyes, Cody urged. With a resigned shrug, Jason withdrew his knife from the creature's chest, redirecting his aim towards its eye. With a decisive thrust, he pierced the eye socket, driving the blade straight into the brain. In an instant, the threat transformed into lifelessness. Despite this, Cody remained cautious, unwilling to release his grip. Stab it again just to be sure, he insisted. Jason grabbed his tool, moving it around in the creature's eye, which moved the entire head. As he let go of it, the zombie's head fell down lifeless. I think it's dead, Jason declared. Cody pondered Jason's explanation for a few moments before reluctantly accepting his reasoning. Gently laying the lifeless creature on the ground, he expressed his frustration to Jason with a restrained smack to the chest, his voice kept low despite the intensity of his emotions. What in the hell is wrong with you, man? Why would you pull that thing in here with us? Cody said. Jason remained composed. Because if I shoved it back out and slammed the door, there would be a dozen of those people on the other side. Now listen, do you hear any banging? Straining to listen, Cody could discern no sounds apart from distant noises emanating from outside the break room. With a reluctant nod, he conceded to Jason's logic. Come on, let's get everybody up here, Jason suggested. Cody leaned back into the opening, addressing the others in hushed tones. Okay, we're clear up here. Just be quiet. As everyone climbed up into the break room and settled in, Jason took on the task of observing the situation outside through the small peephole in the door. Although his view was limited, he could make out the escalator leading to the third floor, roughly 10 yards away. A freestanding metal barrier obstructed the path to the escalator, surrounded by movement that he couldn't fully discern due to the angle. Returning to the group, Jason maintained their subdued conversation. Okay, I can see the escalator just outside the door. There's movement, but I think we can handle it. Why don't we just stay in here? Bradley asked. Jason explained patiently. Because that door isn't one of the security doors, so if enough of them get on the other side, they're going to be able to get through. Bradley mulled over the explanation before conceding with a nod. Let's gather all the food and drinks we can carry. There should be bags underneath the sink and supplies in the cabinets, Jason directed. As the others began collecting supplies, Jason enlisted Cody's help and led him back to the door. Jason gestured for Cody to take a look outside through the peephole. What am I looking at? Cody asked. We need to make our way to the escalator on the right, Jason replied. Cody spotted their target, observing the movement with a wary eye. It looks like we have some company, he remarked. Jason met Cody's gaze, which is why I need you for this. Cody shot him a skeptical glare. Really? Look, that door up top is going to be padlocked. It's going to take me a minute to pick it, Jason explained. Cody's disbelief was evident in his voice. You're going to pick a lock, really? Yep, I am, Jason affirmed confidently. This isn't the movies, man. You're going to get us killed, Cody protested. Trust me, I can do it, Jason insisted. Cody hesitated, voicing his uncertainty. I've trusted you up to this point because you were sounding reasonable. Why in the hell should I trust you now? Jason rolled his eyes, his attention drawn to the lockers in the corner of the break room. Come here. Cody followed Jason over to the lockers, where Jason quickly located a padlock. With practiced precision, he retrieved his multi-tool and set to work on the lock. After a mere 45 seconds of focused effort, the lock yielded, popping open with a satisfying click. Cody's impressed expression spoke volumes. How in the hell did you do that? Cody asked. You know how some people fiddle with their phones to keep their hands busy? Jason explained. Yeah? Cody responded, intrigued. Well, I lay on the couch, watch TV, and pick locks, Jason confessed with a sheepish grin. Cody raised an eyebrow. You haven't had a girlfriend in a while, have you? No, I have not, Jason admitted ruefully. Cody chuckled, offering a promise. You get us through this, and I'm going to hook you up with some hotties. Jason laughed as Cody playfully smacked him on the arm. Their banter was interrupted by the arrival of Laura, Helen, and Bradley, arms laden with bags of snacks and drinks. "We're ready when you are," Laura announced. "Let's do this," Jason declared. Chapter 4. Jason stood poised by the door, his grip firm on the metal bar, his multi-tool ready in his pocket. He glanced back, receiving a nod of readiness from Cody, who held his weapon at the ready, prepared to strike when necessary. Laura, Helen, and Bradley each carried 2 bags of food and drink, ensuring a diverse supply in case one of the bags was lost. "We move quick, and if Cody or I yells out an order, do it. Does everybody understand?" Jason instructed. The 3 food carriers nodded in agreement. Even though they didn't elect Jason and Cody leaders, they knew that those 2 had the most dangerous job on this run, so they deferred to them. "Okay, let's move," Jason declared. Jason exchanged a nod with Cody before grasping the doorknob and turning it slowly, mindful of any potential noise. With a gentle pull, he eased the door open, revealing the clear path ahead onto the sales floor. Taking his first cautious step, Jason surveyed their surroundings. The immediate area in front of them was unobstructed, leading directly to the escalators. However, they needed to reach the right-hand side to ascend. To their left and right, aisles of cheerful stuffed animals contrasted sharply with the grim reality of bloodstains and overturned displays. A nearby corpse, its head crushed, unnerved them as they spotted it. Despite the imminent threat, Jason motioned for the others to follow, gesturing for them to proceed slowly. With careful steps, the group navigated their way towards the escalators, Jason leading the way while Cody kept watch behind them. As they approached the escalator, Jason signaled for them to duck down behind the railing upon hearing movement nearby, ensuring they remained unseen by whatever was around the corner. The group maintained their crouched position, hastening their pace while striving to remain silent. Jason cautiously peered over the top of the railing, spotting a zombie lumbering nearby. The grisly remains of the young man at once spoke of a brutal demise, with flesh torn from his bones. A sigh of relief escaped Jason as the zombie veered off in the opposite direction, granting them an opportunity to advance. They hurried along the side of the escalator, nearing the entrance to the one leading upwards. However, their progress was abruptly halted as one of the zombies Jason had spotted earlier approached. Emerging from around the corner, it locked eyes with the group. A tense silence enveloped them before the creature unleashed a deafening moan, sprinting towards them with alarming speed. "Move," Jason barked. Jason reacted swiftly, surging forward and unleashing a powerful swing of his metal bar. To his astonishment, the blow connected with the side of the creature's head, shattering its skull and sending it crashing to the ground in convulsions. With a brief glance at the writhing form, Jason pressed onward, urgency driving his movements. As he approached the metal barricade guarding the escalator, another ghoul charged towards them. Jason swung his makeshift weapon once more, but this time his aim faltered, striking the creature's shoulder instead. The impact threw the ghoul off balance, causing it to stumble to the ground. Before it could recover, Laura intervened, delivering a decisive kick to its arm, sending it sprawling. Seizing the opportunity, Jason forcefully brought his weapon down on the creature's head, ensuring it remained incapacitated. "Thanks," Jason said. "Anytime," Laura replied. With combined effort, Jason and Laura strained to move the heavy metal barricade blocking their path. Despite its weight, they managed to shift it a few feet away from the escalator railing, clearing a path for their escape. Jason wasted no time, being the first to ascend the stairs. Relief washed over him as he found the way ahead clear. Without hesitation, he handed his weapon to Laura before sprinting up the stairs. Meanwhile, Cody glanced behind them, observing several zombies drawn by the commotion, rapidly closing the gap between them. "Get through there," Cody yelled. Cody braced himself as the leading zombie closed in, preparing to defend the group. With a well-timed swing, he brought his weapon down upon the creature's skull, cracking it open with a sickening thud. Determined to ensure its demise, he delivered several more forceful blows, ensuring it remained incapacitated. As he finished dispatching the immediate threat, Cody turned to see Helen squeezing through the narrow opening created by the barricade and the escalator. Before Bradley could follow suit, another creature lunged at him from the side, slamming into him with frightening momentum. The impact sent Bradley careening into the railing of the escalator, his head just above the edge. Panic flooded his cries as he struggled to free himself from the creature's grasp. "Help me. Help me." Bradley's desperate pleas echoed through the store. As Cody witnessed the horrifying attack unfold, a sense of helplessness washed over him. He took a step forward, instinctively wanting to intervene, but the suddenness of the assault left him frozen in shock. The zombie's teeth sank into Bradley's flesh, tearing away a chunk of his upper arm in a gruesome display. Another vicious bite followed, this time sinking into Bradley's side, eliciting agonized screams from the victim. The sight spurred Cody into action, his senses sharpened by the imminent threat closing in on them. With a heavy heart, he realized that any attempt to save Bradley would only jeopardize the safety of the entire group. "I'm sorry, man," Cody cried out, his voice laden with regret as he turned away from Bradley. With a heavy heart, Cody leaped over Bradley's flailing legs, squeezing through the narrow opening created by the barricade and the escalator. He wasted no time in attempting to close the barrier behind him, but his efforts were thwarted as a zombie drew dangerously close. Though the creature struggled to navigate the opening, Cody seized the opportunity to deliver a decisive blow to its head, momentarily halting its advance. However, his attempt to close the barricade was interrupted as 3 more zombies rushed forward, slamming into it with relentless force. Their flailing limbs prevented Cody from reaching the barricade, forcing him to retreat up the stairs, frustration and despair evident in his voice. "Damn it." Cody took several steps backward, casting a quick glance over his shoulder to assess the situation. He saw Helen and Laura poised for action, with Jason diligently working on the padlock at the top of the metal barrier. As he turned back around, Cody's heart sank at the sight of a zombified Bradley rushing towards the barricade, finally managing to squeeze through the opening and ascend the stairs. "What the hell?" Cody muttered incredulously, struggling to comprehend the surreal turn of events. Despite the shock, he knew he had to treat Bradley like any other threat they had faced. Waiting until the creature was within range, Cody delivered a forceful kick to its chest. The impact sent zombie Bradley hurtling backward, crashing onto the stairs with a sickening crack. Bones snapped under the force, but the ghoul remained undeterred, flailing about before slowly pulling itself back up for a second ascent. Cody braced himself, steeling his resolve as he readied his metal weapon, knowing that he had to aim for the head. As the zombified Bradley closed in, Cody swung with all his strength, the impact shattering the creature's skull with a sickening crack. With one decisive blow, zombie Bradley crumpled to the ground in a heap, his threat neutralized. But Cody's attention quickly shifted to the approaching horde, led by another zombie that had managed to breach the barricade's opening. "Get that door open, man," Cody shouted urgently, directing his plea to Jason, who was still working on the padlock. Seeing the danger approaching, the women retreated closer to the door, giving Cody space to maneuver. As the mob closed in, the first creature stumbled over Bradley's lifeless body, causing a chain reaction that tripped up the others, temporarily impeding their advance. "We're in," Jason yelled. Jason removed the padlock, flinging open the swinging metal door and rushing inside. Helen and Laura followed suit, dashing through the doorway as Cody backed his way up the stairs, ensuring the zombies wouldn't catch him off guard. As the undead horde closed in, Cody finally broke from his position, sprinting up the stairs and joining Jason in slamming the door shut. Together, they secured it with a lock, but left the padlock unfastened. Stepping back, they inspected the reinforced door, reassured by its sturdiness compared to the makeshift barricade below. Despite the zombies' relentless assault, the door held firm, its metal brackets firmly anchored to the floor. "I don't think they're going to get through that," Cody remarked. "Even so, I think someone should keep watch," Jason suggested. Cody nodded in agreement with Jason's suggestion, not wanting to take any chances. Together, they quickly located some drop cloths used by the painters and draped one over the door, obscuring the view in hopes that the zombies would lose interest if they couldn't see them through the metal slats. Turning their attention to the rest of the 3rd floor, they surveyed the deserted space, now transformed into a makeshift construction site. The shelves and displays had been cleared out, replaced by an array of construction materials and tools scattered about haphazardly. The bathrooms are in the middle there and should still be operational. However, if we find any open containers, I think we should fill them with water. We might be here a while, Jason suggested. Jason, I don't think we're going anywhere anytime soon, Laura remarked. Jason and Cody exchanged a concerned glance as they approached Laura and Helen, who stood by the windows overlooking Times Square. Laura's expression was one of stunned disbelief, devoid of any emotion other than shock. In contrast, Helen's face was a portrait of anguish, tears streaming down her cheeks as she struggled to contain her emotions. Is it really that bad out there? Jason inquired, his voice tinged with apprehension, as they joined the two women by the window. Laura responded with a subtle nod, confirming their worst fears. As they gazed out at the scene below, audible gasps escaped their lips. "My God," Jason muttered in disbelief, his voice barely above a whisper. Cody echoed the sentiment, his tone grim. "Yeah, we're not leaving here." From their vantage point on the third floor, they beheld a scene of utter chaos and destruction. Hundreds of zombies roamed the square, relentlessly attempting to breach the barricaded stores. Cars lay wrecked amidst the throng of undead, their occupants besieged by the ravenous horde. The longer they looked, the more horrifying scenes unfolded before their eyes. Finally, Jason tore his gaze away from the window, his voice steady as he attempted to assert some semblance of control amidst the chaos. "Okay, I'll take the first watch by the door. We can probably use some of those drop cloths as bedding," he suggested. Laura sensed Jason's struggle with the harrowing sight before them, prompting her to offer comfort. Placing a reassuring hand on his arm, she spoke softly, her voice filled with empathy. "You've done enough tonight, Jason. I'll take the first watch and let you get some rest," Laura suggested. Jason nodded in agreement, silently accepting her offer as he made his way towards the pile of drop cloths to fashion himself a makeshift bed. As Jason retreated, Laura turned her attention back to the window, her gaze fixed on the devastation unfolding below. A heavy sigh escaped her lips, betraying the weight of their predicament. "Do you know what the worst part of all this is?" Laura mused. "What's that?" Helen inquired. "Well, if I ever talk to my mother again, I'll have to tell her that she was right. New York was too dangerous for me to visit." Chapter 5. Laura sat by the window, her gaze fixed on the horizon as the sun began its ascent, casting streaks of brilliant red across the sky. Yet, despite the spectacle, the impending daylight seemed to dim the mood rather than lift it. Below, in the heart of Times Square, the streets teemed with the undead, their relentless shuffle echoing through the desolate cityscape. Many storefronts, once fortified against the encroaching horde, had succumbed to the relentless pressure, their defenses breached. With a heavy heart, Laura retrieved her keys from her nearby purse, fingers tracing over the familiar grooves of a worn key. She pressed it against the wall, adding another mark to the tally of days spent in captivity. 5 marks already adorned the surface, and now a 6th joined them, each one a stark reminder of their prolonged confinement. As she lingered on the markings, Jason's voice broke the silence, pulling her from her thoughts. "Why do you torture yourself like that?" Laura jumped at the sudden noise behind her, her heart racing for a moment before she composed herself. Jason raised his hands in a placating gesture, a faint smile playing on his lips, attempting to reassure her. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to startle you," he offered. Laura let out a breath, a nervous laugh escaping her lips, more from relief than amusement. "It's okay, I just didn't think anybody else would be up this early," she admitted. "What? And missed this amazing sunrise?" Jason remarked. "It is amazing, as long as you don't look down," Laura replied with a wry smile, a hint of sadness underlying her words. "So it's still not any better down there?" Jason inquired. "If you want to spoil the sunrise, you can take a look for yourself," Laura offered, gesturing toward the window with a sigh. "Nah, I think I'll enjoy the moment for just a little bit longer before letting reality seep in," Jason decided, his gaze fixed on the ever-changing hues of the sky. As they stood together, basking in the fleeting beauty of the sunrise, Jason's admiration was interrupted by the inevitable transition to daylight. The vibrant reds and oranges faded, replaced by the serene expanse of a clear blue sky. "That was nice," Jason remarked softly, a sense of tranquility settling over him. Turning his attention back to the street below, Jason couldn't help but notice the situation. "Well, I think it's looking a little better down there, so that's encouraging," he observed optimistically. Perplexed, Laura rose from her seat to join him, peering down at the street below with a furrowed brow. "I realize I have a Midwest education, but I'd like to think I know the definition of better," she quipped. Jason chuckled, his eyes bright with excitement as he pointed down to a specific spot on the street. "Here, I can prove it to you. Do you see that fire hydrant across the street? Up about a block right by the candy store there?" he asked eagerly. Laura strained her eyes for a moment before spotting the landmark, nodding in acknowledgement. "Yeah, what about it?" she inquired. "Look right in front of it," Jason urged. Laura followed his instructions, scanning the area, but found nothing out of the ordinary. "There's nothing there except for the street," she reported, a hint of frustration creeping into her voice. "Exactly," Jason exclaimed, his enthusiasm undeterred by her confusion. Laura's puzzled expression prompted Jason to clarify. "It's been 5 days since we've seen the pavement, so they're thinning out," he explained. Laura couldn't help but roll her eyes at Jason's optimism, but she couldn't suppress a smile as she playfully smacked him on the chest, eliciting laughter from both of them. "Oh, wait, is that a smile I see?" Jason teased. "A reluctant one, but yes," Laura admitted with a small chuckle. "Then my job here is done," Jason declared triumphantly. "If your job was to start my day off with a headache, then mission accomplished," Laura quipped, though there was warmth in her tone. "Why don't you let me make it up to you and treat you to breakfast?" Jason asked. Laura's expression brightened at the suggestion. "That sounds good to me." Jason and Laura moved away from the windows, settling at their makeshift table in the center of the room, a large piece of plywood balanced precariously atop a stack of boxes. On it lay the remnants of their food haul from the break room, a pitiful sight indeed. "Unfortunately, the selection today is a little on the meager side," Jason remarked, surveying their sparse options. "There's a couple packs of crackers and a questionable snack cake that may have been here since the store opened 80 years ago. Well, I've lived a good life. I'll take my chances on the snack cake," Laura quipped with a grin. "A brave one. I like it," Jason chuckled, opting for the safer option of crackers. With intrigue, Jason observed as Laura cautiously cracked open the snack cake, her expression shifting from uncertainty to surprise as she took a bite. "It's a cinnamon roll. At least I think it is," she declared. Both of them shared a laugh as they enjoyed their modest breakfast, their laughter stirring Cody and Helen from their slumber. The two eventually joined them at the table, Helen expressing relief at the sight of their uplifted spirits. "I'm glad somebody is in a good mood today," Helen remarked with a small smile. "It's a banner day apparently, because a dozen of those things wandered off and we were able to see some pavement," Laura replied, her tone light but tinged with the underlying tension of their situation. "That's fantastic. At this rate, we just need to make this food last us 37 more years and Times Square will be clear," Cody joked, though his tone carried seriousness with it. For a moment, they all forced out a strained laugh, attempting to keep the mood light in the face of their mounting concerns. But eventually, the weight of their situation became unavoidable, hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Cody broke the uneasy silence, steeling himself to address the looming issue. "Okay, fine, I'll say it. We have to do something about the food." As Cody broached the topic of their dwindling food supply, the mood in the room plummeted, casting a pall over their small gathering. Each of them looked down at the meager offerings on the table, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. "Even if we ration it down to a pack of crackers a day, we're going to be out in what, 3? Maybe 4 days?" Cody said. "And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm starting to think that we're not going to be rescued," Laura added quietly. "Yeah, outside of that first day, I don't think I've seen a single helicopter or anything in the air. It's like there's nobody out there," Helen agreed. Turning to Jason for guidance, Cody posed the question, "Do you have any ideas?" Jason pondered for a moment, his brow furrowing in deep concentration. After a thoughtful pause, he swallowed the last bite of his cracker and nodded. "Yeah, but you're probably not going to like it," he warned. I've spent the better part of the last week sleeping on the floor and using paint-covered tarps as bedding. So why should this be any different? Cody replied with a resigned shrug. We have to get to the snack bar, Jason announced. Helen's incredulous response echoed the disbelief in the room. Are you out of your mind, Jason? Surprised by the revelation, Laura interjected, There's a snack bar. Where? On the second floor, Jason clarified. The power's been out for a few days now, so all of the refrigerated stuff has likely spoiled. But they have boxes and boxes of canned goods, he explained. Laura frowned in confusion. Why would a snack bar have canned goods? Because the ownership is cheap as hell, and canned meat lasts a lot longer than the fresh stuff, Helen replied matter-of-factly. Laura grimaced at the thought of facing the dangers below, but the gnawing hunger in her stomach forced her to reconsider. You're out of your mind if you think we can get to it. Those things are everywhere down there, Cody protested. Maybe we can, Laura countered. So you want to go in my place then? Cody challenged. I will if I have to, but that's not what I'm talking about. Come here, Laura motioned for everyone to gather around the windows. She pointed towards the creatures below. I've been staring at these things for days, and over the last couple of days I've started noticing something, she explained. What? Helen asked. They're slowing down. At least I think they are, Laura revealed. What do you mean slowing down? Cody asked. I know it's hard to see from up here, and maybe my mind is just playing tricks on me, but I swear they're slower than they were on that first day, Laura elaborated. The four of them peered out the window, their gazes fixed on different zombies, attempting to discern any changes in their movement. Despite their efforts, it was difficult to gauge. They still just look like they're waiting on their next meal to walk by, so they can run after them, Cody remarked skeptically. I think the big fella's right, Laura. I don't see any difference in their movement, Helen agreed. Jason, you're being awfully quiet. Do you want to chime in here? Cody asked. Jason continued staring out the window for another moment before making a decision. He opened the window, allowing a rush of cool air to sweep into the room, sending a chill through their bodies. What the hell are you doing? Helen yelled. Testing out her theory, Jason replied calmly. He walked over to the pile of construction supplies, retrieving 2 gallons of paint. Placing one on the floor, he hurled the other out the window. Everyone rushed to the windows, their eyes trained on the falling can. As it hit the pavement, instead of the usual frenzy, the nearby creatures all turned and began shambling in its direction. Son of a bitch, she was right, Helen muttered. Jason seized the second can of paint, leaning out the window and aiming it towards a large vacant spot on the pavement created by the mob's movement. As the paint splattered, triggering a slow migration of zombies towards the new distraction, Jason turned back to the group. I think that pretty much proves it. For whatever reason, they're slowing down, and that makes our lives a lot easier, he concluded. But why are they slowing down? Helen wondered aloud. Maybe they're breaking down? The blood flow's not that good, so their muscles atrophy? It doesn't really matter, though. The important thing is that they are, Cody reasoned. Which means we can make a play for the snack bar, Jason suggested. Give me another 20 minutes to wake up and stretch. And I'm game, Cody said. I'll go too, Laura offered. No. Laura felt a pang of offense at Jason's decision, her brows furrowing in slight indignation. You don't think I can handle myself? She challenged. I know you can, which is why I want you to stay here with Helen. If any of those things come up the escalator while we're out, it's up to you two to take them out and clear our path, Jason explained, his voice firm but reassuring. He's right. We're going to be coming back with our arms full and will need an assist, Cody chimed in, echoing Jason's sentiment. Don't worry, we'll have that path clear for you, Laura affirmed. The group stood in silence for a few more moments, each lost in their own thoughts as they continued with their breakfast. Eventually, Helen raised her hand in a sheepish manner. What is it, Helen? Jason inquired. Well, do you remember that bucket list I had? Helen began tentatively. The one involving harming customers? Yeah, why? Jason replied, a hint of amusement in his voice. Well, Helen hesitated before Jason finished the thought for her. Throwing paint cans from a third-floor window onto customers was on there, in a manner of speaking. It wasn't exactly paint cans, just anything really heavy. And I was kind of hoping for the 10th floor to make sure that whoever was hit was completely obliterated, but I can make do with the 3rd floor, Helen admitted with a sheepish grin. The others exchanged concerned glances, but laughter soon erupted throughout the room, breaking the tension. What can I say? I've had some really bad jobs in terrible neighborhoods, Helen shrugged, her tone light despite her confession. As the laughter subsided, Cody made his way towards the paint cans, offering Helen a playful wink. You loosen that arm up. I'll pick you out some good colors, he teased, eliciting a delighted smile from Helen. The group shared a moment of levity, savoring the brief respite before embarking on their risky mission. Chapter 6. Jason and Cody stood by the metal door leading to the escalator, relieved that it had remained silent over the past few days. The creatures that had been pounding on it had wandered off, leaving a clear path out of the 3rd floor. Both men gripped their metal weapons tightly, but Jason had added to their makeshift arsenal. He wore a tool belt filled with screwdrivers, ready to fend off any approaching creatures and unlock doors as needed. Okay, as soon as we're through, I want you to shut this door. If anything comes wandering up, just shove it back down, Jason instructed. Helen held up a sledgehammer with a mischievous smile, prompting Jason to shake his head in amusement. Bucket list? He guessed, raising an eyebrow. 2 of them, if you can believe it, Helen confirmed with a chuckle. If I find a notepad while I'm down there, you're going to have to write this list out for me. And then we're going to have a nice long chat, because girl, you have some issues to work through, Jason teased. I'm working through them, don't you worry about it, Helen assured him with a grin. Helen's grin widened as she brandished the sledgehammer once more, clearly relishing the opportunity to use it. Jason shook his head in defeat, knowing there was no stopping her enthusiasm, but Cody redirected their focus. Okay, man, I know you know the way, but I don't mind taking point, Cody offered. Stay close, and we'll play it by ear, Jason agreed. You got it, Cody replied, ready to follow Jason's lead. Jason glanced over at Laura, who held a sledgehammer of her own. She gave him a thankful nod, the silent exchange conveying a shared understanding. Jason retrieved the lock and handed it to Laura before slowly opening the door. Much to his relief, there was nobody on the escalator. He nodded to Cody, and the 2 of them descended quietly. As they neared the bottom, they spotted the corpse of Bradley, still in the same position that Cody had left him in on the first day, face down on the stairs. They reached the bottom, where the metal barricade remained in place. They listened intently, but could only hear faint movements and moans coming from the other side of the escalator bank. They peered into the dimly lit surroundings, their eyes straining to discern any movement in the shadows. With the power out, only the emergency lights provided minimal illumination, casting faint pools of light that barely penetrated the darkness. Jason motioned for Cody to follow him to the left, the 2 of them tiptoeing cautiously around the escalator bank. As they approached the edge, Jason suddenly stepped backward, halting Cody in his tracks. They both peeked out from behind cover, spotting 3 zombies by the side of the escalator, all 3 gazing down toward the 1st floor. Cody made some hand motions to convey his intentions and grabbed a long screwdriver from Jason's belt. Taking the lead, Cody advanced, with Jason following closely behind, another screwdriver at the ready. They moved slowly but with purpose, silently closing the distance between themselves and the ghouls, positioning themselves to approach from behind. The ghouls never knew what hit them. With precision, Cody dispatched 2 creatures, stabbing them in the back of the head one after the other, while Jason swiftly incapacitated the next one. As the bodies hit the floor, the duo heard moaning coming from their right. They turned to see 8 zombies shambling in their direction from the darkened portion of the store, the closest one still a good 20 yards away. Come on, let's get the stuff and get out of here, Cody urged, taking a few steps towards the snack bar, which he spotted against the far wall. However, Jason remained rooted in place. "What are you doing, man? We have to get moving," Cody pressed. Jason's gaze lingered on the escalator leading to the first floor, relieved to see that there wasn't a significant horde gathered there, at least from his vantage point. However, Cody grew impatient, grabbing Jason and pulling him away from the escalator, urging him towards their objective. The two of them sprinted towards the snack bar, encountering no further resistance, although they heard movement and moans emanating from all sides. They remained vigilant, scanning their surroundings, but the darkness obscured any threats. As they approached, the snack bar came into view, appearing larger than Cody had imagined. A spacious counter stretched across 10 yards, with a couple of registers visible. Behind it, a small kitchen area was discernible in the dim emergency lighting. Both men halted their movement as they heard shuffling sounds emanating from inside the kitchen. "Hold up," Jason whispered. Cody nodded in agreement as they both readied their screwdrivers, preparing to confront whatever lay beyond the swinging door. With careful precision, they inched into the kitchen, their senses heightened for any sign of danger. As Jason pushed through the door, he was suddenly met with a zombie on the other side. The force of the impact nearly knocked him off balance, but Cody quickly caught him and steadied him. Once Jason regained his footing, he realized that it was just a lone zombie attempting to force its way through the door. "Back up, I got this," Jason instructed. Cody nodded in affirmation as Jason prepared to act. With a swift movement, Jason jumped back, relieving the pressure from the door and allowing the ghoul to stumble forward awkwardly. The zombie tripped and collided headfirst into the counter before collapsing to the ground. Without hesitation, Jason delivered a decisive screwdriver strike to the back of the lone zombie's head, dispatching it. He quickly removed the weapon, scanning the kitchen for any further threats, relieved to find none. They stood there for a moment, listening intently for any signs of movement, but the distant sounds of moans and shuffling in the darkness urged them to press on. Darting through the kitchen door, they were greeted by the lone emergency light in the corner, casting a dim glow that illuminated the small space. They scanned the area briefly before their eyes settled on the door leading to the storeroom. However, before they could proceed, they paused when they noticed numerous bloody handprints smeared across the door, clear signs of a zombie trying to get at someone inside. "I'll open the door. You take out whatever is inside," Jason instructed. Cody nodded in agreement. "Do it." Cody positioned himself as Jason grasped the doorknob. With a nod, Jason yanked the door open, and a lone zombie emerged. The creature, clad in a store uniform and bearing a solitary bite mark on its arm, moaned eagerly as it stumbled towards Cody with outstretched arms. Reacting quickly, Cody deflected the zombie's arms before delivering a precise strike straight to its eye socket with the large screwdriver. The blow was fatal, and the ghoul collapsed to the ground in a lifeless heap. With the immediate threat neutralized, the two men peered into the storeroom, grinning at the sight of around 20 boxes filled with goods. "Let's get what we can and get the hell out of here," Jason urged. Cody nodded in agreement, and the two of them rushed into the storeroom. They quickly scanned the labels on the boxes, noting that they were mostly filled with canned meat. "This is going to be heavy as hell," Cody remarked. Jason grimaced as he hoisted one of the heavy boxes, feeling the strain in his muscles. "Just grab one and let's go. There's enough in here to keep us fed for a couple of weeks," he urged. Cody nodded in agreement, grabbing a box as well before the two of them hurried towards the exit. However, their progress was interrupted as they reached the front of the snack bar and were confronted by a trio of zombies approaching from their right. Setting his box down on the counter, Cody grabbed the metal weapon he had been balancing atop it, preparing to engage in combat. But before he could make a move, Jason emerged from the back and immediately spotted the encroaching threat. Without hesitation, Jason hurled his box of canned goods towards the first zombie. The heavy impact sent the ghoul tumbling backward into its two companions, creating an opening for them to get over the counter safely. Seizing the opportunity, Jason leapt over the counter, ignoring the fallen creatures as he retrieved his box and hurried back towards the escalators. He glanced back at Cody, who stood there, shaking his head in disbelief at the unexpected tactic. "Well, come on, or do you want to stay and fight these things?" Jason called out impatiently. Cody snapped out of his momentary shock, leaping over the counter and snatching up his box. Together, they sprinted through the dimly lit floor towards the escalators, the cacophony of moans and shuffling growing louder around them with each passing moment. Approaching the barricade, they spotted a lone creature attempting to climb onto the escalator. Following Jason's lead, Cody launched his box at the ghoul, sending it crashing to the ground. This time, he swiftly retrieved his metal weapon from the ground and delivered a forceful strike to the top of the creature's head, ensuring it remained down for good. As they reached safety behind the barricade, they peered out into the darkness and spotted half a dozen creatures slowly emerging into the light. "Help me get this thing moved," Cody called out urgently. Jason nodded as he positioned himself on the opposite side of the barricade, lending his strength to help Cody pull it closed. Together, they secured the barrier in place, then retrieved their boxes and stepped back a few paces, observing as the mob of zombies approached and clustered around the barricade. "Well, that was fun," Cody remarked dryly. "We got what we needed and got back in one piece." "I call that a win," Jason replied, his tone reflecting a mix of relief and satisfaction. The two of them stood ready to defend themselves as the first few zombies reached the barricade, pressing against it but unable to breach it. Realizing they were safe for the moment, Jason and Cody picked up their bounty and ascended the escalator. Upon reaching the top, Laura opened the door for them, concern evident on her face. "Are you two okay?" she inquired. "Just fine. It was a walk in the park," Jason quipped. "And there was a lot more where this came from," Cody added. "Good, because I'm starving," Laura exclaimed eagerly. After securing the door, they gathered around their makeshift table, eagerly tearing into the boxes of canned meat. Each can was greeted with a mixture of relief and anticipation, as it represented the closest thing to a real meal they had eaten in a week. Jason retrieved his multi-tool, preparing the can opener attachment. One by one, they passed their cans to him, and he expertly popped them open, releasing the savory aroma of spiced meat. Laura took her can and gave it a sniff, the rich aroma tantalizing her senses. "Well, it's a good thing I'm not a vegetarian," she remarked wryly. "You eat this stuff for the next couple of weeks, and you're going to wish you were a vegetarian," Helen joked, getting everyone to laugh as they savored their first real meal in nearly a week. Chapter 7. 2 more days had slipped by, and the quartet surprisingly remained in high spirits. They found solace in having sustenance, a roof over their heads, and a modicum of safety compared to the chaos engulfing Times Square. Their greatest adversary, it seemed, was boredom. Yet, despite their relative comfort, Jason couldn't shake a persistent notion. For the past 48 hours, it had relentlessly nagged at him, dominating his thoughts above all else. Seated beside the open window, Jason peered down at the bustling throngs below, feeling the cool breeze brush against his skin. The thought persisted, refusing to be ignored. It weighed so heavily on him that Laura picked up on it immediately upon approaching him. "So are you going to tell us what's on that mind of yours? Or do I have to start guessing?" Laura asked. "It was just something I saw when Cody and I were down there picking up dinner," Jason explained, his gaze distant as he recalled the scene. "We had to take on a few of those things by the escalator. Once we took them down, I looked over the railing towards the first floor and didn't see much." "What did you see?" Laura pressed. "I mean, I didn't see a flood of those things down there," Jason clarified. "I know that there's plenty of them down there, but it doesn't look like it's packed wall to wall." "Okay, I guess it's good that the store hasn't been completely overrun with whatever those things are," Laura acknowledged. "It just got me thinking, that's all," Jason admitted. "Thinking about what exactly?" Laura inquired, nudging him playfully. When Jason hesitated, Laura resorted to a more forceful tactic, giving him a light smack on the arm. "You've helped keep us all alive this long with your ideas, so don't start getting shy now." "Okay, you're right," Jason relented after a moment's contemplation. "I'm just trying to think long term, because we might have to be here for months." "There's plenty of food, isn't there?" Laura pointed out optimistically. "It's only been 2 days, but we've barely put a dent into that canned meat you and Cody brought up." "The food isn't the problem," Jason countered, a furrow forming between his brows. "I mean, it kind of is, because every time we go out there and make noise, we risk luring more of those things up to the second floor." It might get to a point where we can't go get more. We have the barricade and plenty of weapons, so I'm sure we can fend off whatever comes our way, Laura reassured him. Maybe, but there's one thing that those weapons can't fend off, Jason remarked gravely. What's that? Laura prompted, her concern growing palpable. Just then, a light metallic clattering echoed on the ground, drawing the attention of Laura and Jason. They turned to see Cody standing there with a few metal paint bucket lids, flinging them like frisbees towards a 5-gallon bucket. Their eyes followed as one of the lids landed perfectly inside, prompting Cody to pump his fist in celebration. Boredom, Jason remarked, his voice tinged with wry humor. Yeah, that is a bit of a concern, Laura agreed, a hint of frustration in her tone. I've already run out of things to talk to Helen about. There's only so many times I can listen to her bucket list before I want to pull my hair out. Hey now, don't knock the list if you've never worked retail, Jason quipped. Laura cracked a smile, acknowledging his point. Okay, fair enough, but I think we're on the same page. But what are we going to do about it? Jason took a deep breath, psyching himself up to present his idea. Finally, he nodded before calling out to the others. Hey Cody, Helen, can I borrow you for a minute? Cody tossed his last remaining lid towards the bucket, celebrating another successful shot before sauntering over. You're getting pretty good at that, Helen observed as Cody approached. I got a few buckets if you want to set up a disc golf course later, Cody offered, a playful glint in his eye. That might be fun, Helen agreed with a grin. The group gathered by the window, observing the still teeming streets below. It doesn't look that much different outside, Helen remarked.
That's not why I called you over. Well, it kind of is, Jason admitted.
Cody and Helen exchanged curious glances. What's on your mind, man? Cody inquired. I've been thinking, and we have to come to terms with our situation, Jason began, his tone somber. It's been a week since we saw anybody alive or heard any aircraft overhead. The others exchanged glances, silently acknowledging Jason's point. Good, we all agree on that point, Jason continued. Since we've been up here, we've just been focused on surviving in the short term. But it's time we start planning on being here for months. Jason paused, allowing Cody and Helen a moment to digest the gravity of his words. Both of them reluctantly nodded before turning their attention back to Jason. As bad as that sounds, I don't know what else we can do about it, Cody admitted with a sigh. Do you remember when we made the dinner run a couple of days ago? Jason prompted. You were yelling at me to come on when I was at the escalators. Yeah? What about it? Cody inquired. I don't think the store has been overrun on the first floor, Jason revealed. So what? Helen questioned. Because of that, I think we can block off the second floor, Jason proposed. Helen and Cody stared at Jason as if he had suddenly sprouted a second head. You're out of your mind, Jason, Helen stated bluntly. We're all going to be out of our minds here before too long if we don't get out of this room, Jason retorted. Cody, you've spent the last hour trying to throw a paint lid into a bucket. Cody mulled over Jason's words for a moment before reluctantly nodding in agreement. And I don't know about the rest of you, Jason continued, but thinking about sleeping on the floor with nothing more than a couple of dirty paint tarps makes me contemplate jumping out of the window here. All three of the others nodded in agreement, understanding their new reality. I hear what you're saying, but it's still a hell of a risk. And for what? Cody interjected. Some entertainment and better sleeping conditions. I'm going to need more than that. Okay, water, Jason countered. We have water right here, Helen pointed out. Yeah, for now. But there's nobody at the controls anymore, Jason explained. It's a solid system, but what happens a month from now? What do we do when there's nothing coming out of the faucet? Even if we ration what we've been able to capture up here, we'd be out of water in less than a week, Laura added somberly. But how does clearing out the second floor help with that? Cody pressed. Jason leaned back with a knowing smile, leaving the others perplexed until he finally spoke up. The Halloween section, he declared. Laura and Cody exchanged confused glances, but Helen's eyes widened with excitement. You're a goddamn genius, Helen exclaimed. How so? Laura inquired. A quarter of the second floor is our Halloween display, Helen explained eagerly. There's a lot of costumes, but there's also a ton of candy buckets. About 1,000 if my memory of the inventory sheet is correct, Jason chimed in. And they're gallon-sized at least. So if the water stopped flowing, we'd be good for the better part of a year, Helen added. Plus, there's other stuff down there we could use. The games section would be particularly welcome, she continued. I'm not a fan of taking unnecessary risks, but this one is starting to feel kind of necessary, Cody admitted reluctantly. How would we go about it? Laura inquired. As soon as we start making noise, those things are going to start coming up from the first floor. That barricade is heavy as hell, but I think between the four of us, we can get it moved over to the other side of the escalators, Jason suggested optimistically. While we're fighting those things off. It's no good, man, Cody objected. We'd have to drop it to the ground several times in order to fight, and that's just going to pull them up. If we don't win that race, we're going to get overwhelmed. Jason pondered the plan for a moment before nodding in agreement. We'll just have to figure out a way to slow those things down while we take care of the ones on this floor, he remarked. What all is in the section just in front of the escalator? Laura inquired, her mind already formulating a plan. Helen paused, thinking it over before responding. We just changed it out last week to those small cars. Toy cars? Laura sought clarification. No, the big ones that kids can drive around, Helen clarified. That's perfect, Laura exclaimed. What are you thinking? Jason asked. My nephew had one of those, Laura began, her voice faltering momentarily as memories flooded her mind. She quickly pushed them aside and continued. They were lightweight, but still had some heft to them. And they were unwieldy. I watched my sister trip over it 6 times the last time I was out here. There's got to be a few dozen of those cars in that section, Jason realized. We can grab them and toss them down the escalator. It's not going to hold them off forever, but it should buy us enough time to fortify our position. Jason scanned the faces of the others, seeing their expressions shift from skepticism to cautious optimism. I think this just might work, Cody finally conceded. Jason's grin widened as he formulated an idea. Laura couldn't help but notice his expression. Share with the class, Jason, she prompted. Cody, I know you're getting good with those paint cans. But how good exactly? Jason asked. I think my best shot was about 20 yards away. Why? Cody replied, intrigued by Jason's line of questioning. Because I know how we're buying ourselves some time. Chapter 8. Jason and Cody stood poised at the bottom of the escalator, their makeshift weapons resting on the railings between the two sets of stairs. Laura and Helen stood just behind them, gripping their sledgehammers tightly. Are you sure about this? Cody asked, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. Not really. But it sounds good in theory, doesn't it? Jason replied. Yeah, I suppose so, Cody conceded, trying to muster confidence. Plus, it's better than my first idea, Jason added with a chuckle. Which was? Cody inquired, intrigued. Send you over to aisle 6 to grab a whistle and run around on the far end of the store, Jason explained, eliciting a laugh from Cody. Shaking his head, Cody cracked a smile as he and Jason each grabbed a paint bucket lid. They warmed up their throwing motion before launching them as far as they could into the darkness. Both lids soared through the air before landing with a clatter, echoing through the silent aisles. A moment later, they heard the unmistakable sounds of moaning and shuffling feet. The noise of the zombies was mostly in front of them, as the lids hitting the ground didn't make a tremendous amount of noise, but it was enough to draw their attention. Both men hurled another lid each, wanting to make sure the creatures in the darkness had plenty to chase. Without hesitation, they grabbed their weapons and vaulted over the barricade, leaving Laura and Helen positioned behind it on their respective sets of stairs. We're going to be making a hell of a lot of noise over there, so it's only a matter of time before those things start coming back this way, Jason warned, his voice tinged with urgency. Don't worry, when they do, we'll pull them over here, Laura reassured him, her grip tightening on her sledgehammer. And I'll start checking off bucket list items, Helen chimed in. Jason nodded at the two women before seizing another paint lid. He and Cody veered to the right, skirting around the corner of the escalator bank. Almost immediately, they spotted a zombie shambling out from one of the aisles. Cody took point, rushing forward and swinging his metal weapon forcefully. The bar connected with a satisfying thud, cracking the slow-moving creature in the side of the head. Without pause, Cody followed up with a decisive kill shot as the zombie crumpled to the ground. Jason rushed towards the set of escalators leading to the first floor, Cody following closely behind. Glancing down, they spotted a couple of zombies milling about at the bottom of the stairs, showing no immediate interest in climbing up. As they reached the escalators, Jason and Cody scanned the store, hearing moans and movement but not seeing any immediate threats. However, just off to their left, they spotted the aisle with all the children's vehicles. "Okay, let's buy us a few minutes," Jason declared. Cody nodded in agreement as they both grabbed paint bucket lids and hurled them towards the back of the store. They launched one after another, the clattering of the lids hitting the ground echoing through the aisles. As they landed, Jason glanced down to the first floor and spotted the two creatures at the bottom of the escalator. Now alerted to the commotion on the second floor, the zombies began to ascend the stairs, emitting low moans as they shuffled upwards. "Damn it. Come on, we have to move," Jason urged. Jason and Cody laid their metal weapons on the ground, opting for screwdrivers as they rushed over to the display filled with children's cars. These were hefty plastic vehicles, several feet long and a couple of feet tall. Each of them grabbed two cars before turning and darting back towards the escalator. Pausing momentarily before tossing them down, they assessed the situation. The group of zombies that had initially been just a couple had now swelled to half a dozen, their collective moans reverberating through the air. "We have to retreat, man," Cody urged, a note of panic creeping into his voice. "No, if we don't do this now, we're never going to get another chance. We can do this," Jason insisted. Cody shook his head, still unsure about the plan, but he knew Jason was determined and wouldn't back down. Reluctantly, he picked up one of the cars, feeling its weight of about 25 pounds, and hurled it down the stairs towards the approaching horde. Their throws fell a little short, causing the plastic vehicles to bounce off the stairs before reaching the zombies. Cody's throw only grazed a zombie, doing little to impede its progress. However, Jason's throw had more force behind it, causing the car to bounce higher and slam into the chest of one of the ghouls, sending it tumbling backward on the escalator. Even from a distance of 10 yards, they could hear the sickening crack as the ghoul's skull collided with the edge of the stairs. Cody glanced over at Jason, nodding in acknowledgement as his confidence in the plan began to grow. They threw their remaining cars before sprinting back to the shelves to grab another batch. As they made their way back towards the escalators, the distant moans grew louder behind them. Upon reaching the top, they threw the two cars, but as they turned, they were met with the sight of half a dozen zombies emerging from the darkness. Jason and Cody exchanged a grim look, realizing that their makeshift barricade was only slowing down the zombies on the stairs, not stopping them. "Forget these guys. Just grab another set of cars and let them get closer," Cody urged. Jason nodded in agreement, already anticipating Cody's plan. They raced back towards the aisle with the cars, but Jason was forced to push a creature backward to reach a set of oversized plastic vehicles. As he hurried back, he felt the zombie's hands scrape against his back, narrowly missing grabbing him. As Jason and Cody returned, they quickly hurled the cars down the escalator, forming a makeshift barrier against the approaching zombies, now nearly a dozen in number. Upon closer inspection, they noticed that the zombies at the front of the pack were attempting to climb over the cars, but their movements were clumsy. One zombie stepped over the first car, only to get its foot caught in the steering wheel of the next one. As it struggled, it fell backward, sending the car flying over its head and into several others, triggering a domino effect. Turning their attention back to the 6 zombies on the second floor, nearing them, Cody retrieved their metal weapons and handed one to Jason. "When they get here, don't worry about kill shots. Just grab their arms and fling them down the stairs," Cody instructed. Wouldn't it be safer to kill them and just toss the corpses down there? Jason questioned. I figure if we throw them hard enough, they'll crack some bones when they land, making it real hard for them to get up. They'll be like a moving barricade, Cody reasoned. It's risky. But what the hell? I'm game, Jason agreed. Cody nodded in agreement as they prepared for the imminent encounter with the approaching ghouls. As soon as the first zombie was within reach, Cody sprang into action, seizing its arm and executing a move reminiscent of a professional wrestler sending his opponent into the ropes, flinging the creature forward with all his might. The ghoul hurtled through the air, lifted off its feet by Cody's forceful shove, and tumbled down the escalator stairs. They watched as it flew halfway down before landing with a sickening thud, the sound of bones cracking audible even from their vantage point at the top. Following Cody's lead, Jason replicated the maneuver, albeit with a little less force due to his smaller stature. The zombie only managed to make it a quarter of the way down the escalator, and there was no audible cracking of bones upon impact. Undeterred, Jason quickly grabbed the next creature and shoved it with all his strength. The zombie stumbled down the stairs, its foot connecting with the first step, which propelled it a little further than the last one. The impact of the second zombie crashing into the first sent them both tumbling backward, their bodies entangled as multiple bones cracked upon impact with the stairs. Quickly regaining their focus, both men turned their attention to the last two remaining zombies approaching them. Cody propelled one through the air with a powerful shove, while Jason pushed the other backward, buying Cody enough time to deal with both. With the immediate danger quelled, they glanced down at the creatures attempting to ascend the escalator. The closest one was only halfway up, struggling to rise to its feet due to the broken bones. Meanwhile, the ghouls behind them found it challenging to navigate the makeshift blockade they had created. Come on, let's grab some more cars and toss them down there, Jason suggested. The two men nodded in agreement before hastily running back to the aisle to grab two more sets of vehicles. As they approached the escalator, they heard Laura's urgent call for help. Jason, we need help. Laura's voice echoed through the store. We're on the way, Jason shouted back. Both Jason and Cody rushed back to the escalator, hastily chucking the cars down without much regard for precision. However, they could see that the zombies on the left side were beginning to circumvent the barricade. I'll help them, you just keep throwing stuff down there, Cody instructed. Yell out if you need help, Jason replied, trusting Cody to handle the situation. Cody nodded before darting around to the side of the escalator, immediately spotting the problem before he could even see the barricade. A dozen creatures had gathered around the escalator, struggling to reach the women. Cody picked up speed, readying a screwdriver as he blindsided the closest zombie, determined to clear a path to Laura and Helen. With precision, the tip of Cody's tool pierced the side of the creature's head as he maintained his momentum, shoving the ghoul back into the mob, causing several of them to topple to the ground. Quickly transitioning to a bashing mode, Cody readied his metal weapon and began swinging it with all his strength at the remaining standing ghouls. The first strike sent one tumbling to the ground, landing atop the others he had previously knocked down. Without hesitation, Cody delivered another forceful blow to the back of its head, rendering it lifeless. Stepping up towards the front of the escalator, Cody glanced over to see Laura and Helen wielding their sledgehammers like seasoned pros. Despite their fatigue, they continued to swing the heavy weapons above their heads, bringing them down hard on the creatures pressing against the barricade. Not to be outdone, Cody swung his weapon with ferocity, caving in 3 heads before redirecting his attention to the still thrashing creatures on the ground. With swift and decisive strikes, he dispatched them one by one until the area around the barricade was calm, the only sound filling the air being that of heavy breathing among the 3 survivors. Are you two all right? Cody asked. Both women were out of breath, managing only to extend a feeble thumbs up in response. Is everybody okay over there? Jason yelled. Yeah, we're good. Cody yelled back to Jason. I need you over here then, Jason replied. Cody looked back at the women. Stay there. I'll be right back, he instructed, before quickly making his way back to the other set of escalators where Jason was waiting. Upon his arrival, Cody saw Jason standing beside 4 large plastic trucks, a satisfied grin spreading across his face. "Are we looking good here?" Cody inquired. "Take a look for yourself," Jason replied, gesturing towards the scene before them. Cody peered down the escalator, observing a dozen large vehicles on either side of the stairs. He could detect movement, but it was obscured by the debris or hidden behind it. "I don't think they're going to get through for a while, but I have some reserves just in case," Jason remarked. "Good. I think we're clear on that side too," Cody responded. "Okay, before we do anything, we need to make sure that the floor is clear," Jason stated firmly. "I'll get to it then," Cody volunteered. "No, we're going to do it together. I want Helen or Laura to come over here and watch. We're not going out there alone. Once we're clear, we'll get the barricade moved over and fill those stairs up until it's nothing but junk," Jason instructed. "And then we go shopping," Cody added with a grin. "And then we go shopping," Jason affirmed. With a fist bump exchange between Jason and Cody, the latter went to fetch one of the ladies to stand guard. Over the next several hours, the group of four toiled tirelessly, their efforts focused on securing the stairwell to the first floor and eliminating any threats on the second floor. It was a labor-intensive and back-breaking task, but their determination drove them forward. After ensuring their safety, they took their time shopping, procuring vital necessities such as Halloween candy buckets and games to maintain their sanity. Additionally, they indulged in some luxury items, acquiring enough Halloween costumes to fashion comfortable makeshift beds. As the long day drew to a close, the group gathered by the snack bar grill, all eyes fixed on Cody, who stood by the flat-top grill, his hand trembling over the starter. "Okay, everybody, moment of truth," Cody announced, his voice filled with anticipation. "I know this thing is gas, but we don't know if the gas is still on." "Fingers are crossed," Helen exclaimed. Cody flicked the switch, the starter element clicking a few times before everyone let out a collective sigh of relief at the sound of the flame igniting underneath. "Oh yeah, now we're cooking," Cody exclaimed with a grin. As the surface of the grill heated up, Cody wasted no time. He opened up 4 cans of the mystery meat product and began slicing it up. Glancing around underneath the counter, he located a loaf of bread, giving it a once-over. "Bread looks good too. And we have 7 loaves under here, so we might as well get our fill of sandwiches while we can," Cody remarked. "Do you know how to cook? Anybody can just throw meat onto the grill, but I'm always skeptical of someone in as good shape as you are being able to cook something like that properly," Helen asked. "Don't you worry, Helen. My pops owns a sandwich shop out in Long Island. I'm not going to do you wrong," Cody reassured her confidently. "Oh, honey, I know you couldn't do me wrong," Helen replied. Her sultry tone and wink directed at Cody caused him to blush furiously, eliciting laughter from the rest of the group. "Cody, you let me know if you need me to check and see if the fire hose is still working," Laura joked, her playful tone adding to the merriment. "Or find you a spray bottle or something to keep her at bay." More laughter erupted from the group as Cody focused on cooking, feeling the heat emanating from the flat-top grill before tossing the sliced meat onto it, filling the air with a satisfying sizzle. Meanwhile, Jason's gaze was fixed on the escalator, which was now filled with debris protruding over the railing and leaning against the barricade. "Don't worry, it'll hold. Nothing is getting through that," Laura reassured Jason, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "I know, I'm just worried though," Jason admitted. Laura's touch helped to calm Jason, prompting him to turn around and join the others. "We're safe, at least for the next few months. The biggest thing we have to worry about is what game we're going to play tonight," Laura remarked, trying to lighten the mood. She glanced over at Helen, who was still giving Cody a playful look. "And whether or not Helen is going to pounce on Cody in his sleep," Laura added with a mischievous grin, earning a laugh from Jason as he finally relaxed, resting his arms on the counter. Though they were trapped with no hope of escape or rescue in the foreseeable future, the group found solace in their current circumstances. They had hot food, a warm bed, plenty to drink, and most importantly, a sanctuary away from the undead. The end.